Irish guy, and everyone loves a basket case. I mean, why do you think Charlie Sheen has over £100 million in his bank account? I mean, you know someone like him probably spends about 3 hours a day eating Vaseline and wiping his bum with toast, right? But lads, in football, I've been trying to scour the globe's top leagues to find the weirdest football team so far in the 2022-2023 season. And there are a few options. Football clubs who right now are so weird, you wouldn't be surprised to see the president making out with pigeons outside the local airport. I mean, like how Udinese went top of Serie A, and have now resorted to begging Cristiano Ronaldo to join. I mean, calm down, Udinese. I mean, that's a bit like your dad getting a promotion at work, and then suddenly think he can ask out the president's wife. But lads, everyone thought that when they thumped Roma 4-0, that I would be hyperventilating into a shoe, right? That my heart would have been snapped in two. Nah, lad, Udinese have 2 boys from Ireland in their squad, top of the league, and yet they began 2022 by letting Atalanta score 6 at their ground. I mean, how embarrassing. You might as well let their club chairman take a poo on the penalty spot. But, I mean, what about in the Bundesliga? Bayer Leverkusen are in the Champions League, and yet staring headfirst down the barrel of relegation to Germany's 2nd tier. How could a club be winning just 2 of their opening 10 matches of the season? And yet, one of those wins was against Atletico Madrid on a European night. Just what? I mean, what about over there in Portugal? Sporting Lisbon. I mean, top of their Champions League group, sure, but already 11 points behind in the title race. Oh yeah, and weirdly, 4 of their 5 pre-season games were boring 1-1 draws. How dull that must have been. But what about in La Liga, where Julian Lopetegui, despite being a Sevilla hero last season, is set to be sacked and replaced by Marcelo Bielsa, sacking a former Spain and Real Madrid boss for a coach recently binned by Leeds? Sounds about as clever as spooning with a mountain troll. Nah, okay, just kidding. Okay, listen, Bielsa is an amazing coach, I know, and him at Sevilla actually is pretty delicious. The thought alone tastes like chocolate pie. But even in England, the weirdest team is without a doubt Preston North End. 5 of the first 6 championship games were 0-0 draws. Lads, they began the season with 7 clean sheets in a row. They've played 10 games, scored 3 times, and conceded 4. I mean, when you think your team is boring, just think of poor old Preston fans. The former Invincibles of England are right now about as much fun to watch as 2 monkeys scratching their armpits in a bush. But no, the weirdest club in Europe right now is without a doubt Nice in France. Lads, you will not believe how downright nutty this club are. There's more shocking storylines than an episode of Emmerdale. I mean, where do you want to start? I mean, we all know that this is a French club bankrolled by Britain's richest man. I'm sorry, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe was born in a council house in Oldham and was probably being delivered on the couch. He's a Manchester United fan and Chelsea season ticket holder. Has been knighted by the Queen. You would assume he would own a Premier League club, right? No, instead, Nice. I mean, considering I don't speak French, I'm pretty sure there's not a single Nice fan watching this video, but if you were a Nice fan, would you not be a bit furious that your filthy rich owner has just spent the entire summer openly flirting with Manchester United? I mean, I remember when Mike Ashley bought a stake in Rangers, and Newcastle fans nearly choked on their Cheerios, and they didn't even want Ashley. How disrespectful to Nice that for most of the summer, yeah, you had Manchester United fans looking at the Ratcliffe interest and looking back at their problems and thinking, yeah, Jim will fix it. Well, without the unpleasantness. But Ozzy, him buying Nice was so random. Ozzy, the previous owner of Nice, back in 2019, must have been delighted to have been bought out by Britain's richest man. Ozzy, imagine getting that. Getting a phone call from his agent and being told that Jim is interested in his niece. Again, that sounds very Savile-esque. Oh, by the way, while you're here, it takes 2 seconds of your time. Get the mouse, go on the red subscribe button, and click. Honestly, it will make your day so much better. And mine. 150k coming up. Anyway, yeah. Back into the video. But it was a summer of absolute chaos. This is supposed to be a team in League One, and yet their shopping list was also very English. I mean, they bought unwanted former Premier League misfits in Aaron Ramsey and Ross Barkley on freeze. Casper Schmeichel was bought from Leicester for £900,000. Nicolas Pepe was a loan arrival from Arsenal's bench. And they made offers for Blackburn Rovers goal machine Ben Brereton Diaz. And yeah, technically a Chile international, sure. But I mean, it was born in Stoke and joined Manchester United at age 7. Oh yeah, and weirdly, they tried to get Ben Foster too. Yes, they actually rang him up and offered him a chance to vlog on a French bench. Oh yeah, and the weirdest of all is they've got 29-year-old Joe Bryan at left back. You know, the former Fulham player who used to play for Bath. The guy who scored 2 in a championship playoff final against Brentford. One of the most relieved nights of my life. I mean, how does anyone in France know who he is? Honestly, Joe Bryan in France, This is bizarre. It's a bit like seeing the fat one of Gavin and Stacey suddenly presenting a show in America. I mean, how is an extra of Hollyoaks and Little Britain now singing in a car with Kanye West? Honestly, it makes no sense. I mean, this was such an English shopping list. I mean, if this was Crystal Palace making these signings, you wouldn't have blinked twice. Honestly, it's like going to a French patisserie in Paris and instead being served a menu for Wetherspoons. I mean, you were expecting traditional French cuisine. Instead, you're now picking pubic hairs out of your scrambled egg. Oh yeah, that's great. I really like how I can still see the barmaid spit in my glass of orange juice. Oh, I've always wanted to eat a waffle that's just been used to wipe sick off the toilet floor. And more on people. The narrative is that Nice lost their talented coach Christophe Gaultier to PSG. No, the truth is that if PSG hadn't rescued him, Nice would have sacked him anyway after he'd fallen out with the president. Honestly, imagine if PSG had appointed Jose Mourinho instead. Then, with a Nice sack staining his reputation, Gaultier would now probably be the Bournemouth coach. I mean, look what happened to Patrick Vieira. Lads, Gaultier is a guy who used to be assistant coach at Portsmouth, weirdly managing Gary O'Neill back in the day. So now, being told to babysit Mbappe, Neymar and Messi, it's a bit like telling Fogdad to hang out with the Spice Girls for a night. The social pressure probably caused him to wet his pants. I mean, he's been replaced by Lucien Favre, the guy who replaced Claude Puel at Nice in 2016, and went on to drag the club into the Champions League before leaving for Borussia Dortmund. So surely his return is a match made in heaven, right? Nah, he's also about to be sacked. They've already lost 5 games of football this season, including 1 in Israel. I mean, they've yet to win a single Europa Conference League match. I mean, everything at Nice is going wrong. Lads, they lost at home to Angers at the weekend after their centre-back Jean-Claire Todibo was sent off after 9 seconds. 9 seconds? How? He is supposed to be a former Barcelona standard centre-back, and he can't even last 10 seconds on the pitch? He was playing for less time than it takes to piss in the sink. He wouldn't have even needed a shower after the match. Maybe just give his armpit a half-hearted scrub with a flannel, but that's about it. I mean, Favre has already admitted that he doesn't know what position Barkley plays on the pitch. Clearly, he didn't want to be handed a dustbin filled with British rubbish. Honestly, he is a distinguished European coach who wants to be taken seriously. He does not want to have to babysit a former Rangers misfit like Aaron Ramsey. Someone who probably now just resorted to eating bags of popcorn in his car. Favre is an intelligent, highly rated, managerial artiste. Honestly, it's like handing Leonardo da Vinci a bin bag filled with pancakes and crisp packets that you found in Hull. What is he supposed to do with that? This is honestly like Jim Ratcliffe just wanting to buy everything he's seen on Match of the Day. But Favre wasn't the one buying these players, obviously. It was head of recruitment Ian Moody. And you're probably thinking, how do I know that name? Lads, he was the guy forced to resign as Crystal Palace sporting director in 2014 after being involved in a text scandal with Malky Mackay. After that media disgrace, I'd have assumed both men would just scuttled off to look for jobs laying tables in McDonald's. But no, Mad Eye Moody is back. This is a man who had his house raided and had around 70,000 texts and 100,000 emails trawled through by the FA. How embarrassing. And honestly, lads, some of those texts were disgusting. And now he is employed by a club called Nice. Really? Nice? Moody? Although it now makes sense why the club are signing Barkley and Aaron Ramsey, 2 players who peaked in 2014, because that was the year Moody's career was cancelled. I mean, he's just still stuck in a time warp where he thinks these guys are superstars when in reality they're just a couple of buttered croissants found underneath a bus seat. So, who's the next manager going to be?
Mauricio Pochettino set for surprise talks today at French club Nice, with the former PSG and Tottenham manager in line to replace under pressure boss Lucien Favre.
Well, according to Fabrizio Romano, this one is unlikely.
Ex-Tottenham manager Mauricio Pochettino holding out for Premier League return despite interest from Nice.
Yeah, let's be honest. I would imagine that not even receiving a phone call from Chelsea last week will have been a punch to the ego. I mean, this is supposed to be one of the elite coaches in the world, and yet he loses out to a Brighton coach. Maybe, just maybe, this guy could be tempted by the Leicester City job, but for Nice, Plan B is even weirder.
Scott Parker lined up to become Nice manager with Mauricio Pochettino's to snub move and hold out a Premier League return.
What? Scott Parker, he doesn't even speak French. Do you see how Ratcliffe is Londifying this club? Do you not just want to pack up the stadium and move to Bolton altogether? I mean, Jim, do you think that you're owning QPR? This is French football, and you want to hire the sacked Bournemouth coach? I mean, Parker has played for 5 London clubs. The guy might as well have a tattoo of Big Ben on his bum. So seeing him coach in League One, it's all a bit wrong. A bit like going abroad on holiday and watching Only Fools and Horses whilst dubbed in Chinese, or watching a reboot of Father Ted using actors from Melbourne and Perth. You feel so uncomfortable watching that. A bit like being forced to look at an old woman biting off her shoulder warts. Lads, this isn't Tony Parker, it's Scott. There is not an iota of French blood in his veins. He probably didn't even study it at school. Although actually, don't most Premier League footballers leave school at about, what, 12? He probably still needs to hold his mother's hand crossing the road. He probably thinks India is a type of herbal tea. I mean, there's only ever been one British coach who's ever managed in France. John Toshak. He lasted 12 games as boss of Saint Etienne over 20 years ago. It doesn't happen. No English manager has ever done it. Even as a player, Parker never showed any interest in moving abroad. I mean, Fenerbahce wanted him in 2011. West Ham even accepted a £10 million bid, but he looked like he would sooner snap off his nose and feed it to the cat than dare to move to Turkey. I mean, he is a home bird. Can anyone really imagine this guy strolling down the local boulangerie or having a picnic on the French Riviera? No, the poor fella would be so homesick, he'd be hurriedly trying to order a Papa John's pizza off Uber Eats. I mean, offer Scott a bowl of frog's legs and he'd probably cry and ring his mum. Imagine seeing Scott Parker in a French museum. You'd sooner find Prince Andrew at a Snoop Dogg concert. He doesn't sweat. You know that song, Wanna Make You Sweat? Yeah, he doesn't do it. If you're looking for an English coach to hang out at the Notre Dame, then surely Steve Cooper is the correct choice. Sorry, that was me. But honestly, you don't want someone who looks like the Prince of Shrek. But in all seriousness, because of this club's full-blown obsession with the Premier League, I reckon their next manager is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Just you watch. Ratcliffe is a Man United fan. Honestly, it's going to happen. Kasper Schmeichel is a rotten Nice flop. A bad egg. Yeah, the nicest guy in football. Right now, Leicester City fans are crying out for the return of their goalie hero. But so far, his boo-boo to France has been a disaster. According to reports, the Nice hierarchy are not happy with his very high body fat percentage. So essentially, they think he's too fat to play in goal. Listen, okay, the metabolism slows down after 30, right? He's nearly 40 years of age, and goalies, they don't exactly run. So no, I don't think anything drastic has happened. I doubt that last month you'd have caught him in the airport terminal eating 3 wedding cakes. No, but it gets worse. Apparently, he's upset his teammates by breaking club rules by turning up to meetings late, not sticking to mandated rest days, and also apparently he's undermined the club manager by going over his head to speak directly to Jim Ratcliffe about playing in the opening game of the season. He didn't. Martin Bulka played instead, a goalie on loan from PSG who's 13 years younger than Schmeichel, a Poland under-21 international who once sat on the bench for Chelsea 3 times. Anyone remember him? Anyone? But okay, he's upset his Nice teammates. Lads, there has always been disruptions in the Nice dressing room. Over the last 5 years, it's probably been one of the most toxic, jealous, horrible atmospheres at any football club. Lads, a few years ago, Mario Balotelli was in trouble because he missed 2 minutes of a crucial match against Nantes because he couldn't tie his shoelaces before kickoff. This is a guy who ruined his big chance at Nice by falling out with Patrick Vieira. 2 years later, he's being offered to Barnsley. Vieira was his manager and former teammate at Man City. You'd think the two would be friends. And yet, admitted he would like to slam him into a wall and he banished him from training. There were always attitude problems with Alison Maximan. And remember when Nice bought Hannah Benarfa in January? Realised they couldn't actually play him, so had to sack him in February and then sign him again in June. Last year, this was a club docked points after a brawl with Marseille. 3 years ago, they had to sack a player for ceding his teammates £62,000 watch. This is an insane football club. The same year, former player Jean Serry was suing the club for fraud. What is this? So someone moaning because Schmeichel turned up to training late. At least he's not nicking your Rolex from your lunchbox. I don't think we're done with Schmeichel in England. Don't forget, his dad also randomly decided that after winning the treble with Man United, to go and move to Portugal. Like Kasper, he was also turning 36 years old that November. It was the exact same point in his career. The Schmeichels always leave the country before they're 36. But weirdly, after just 1 season, where he helped Lisbon win the league for the first time in 18 years, Schmeichel had actually agreed a free transfer back to Old Trafford, only for Fergie to call off at the last minute to concentrate on the future in Fabio Barthez, despite him having reflexes wobblier than a kangaroo's leg. He then left the following summer for Aston Villa. I can see a Schmeichel return to Leicester in January. Why not? Although, let me create the perfect romantic jigsaw puzzle. Loris Karius gets injured while shopping for Cocoa Pops in Asda, and he pulls a groin muscle reaching for the broccoli. So Newcastle have to recall Martin Dubravka in January, allowing Manchester United to finally sign Peter Schmeichel's son. Honestly, make it happen. It just makes me think though, Bulka was Nice's second choice. Their main competition for Schmeichel was supposed to be Ben Foster. If he had moved to France, then maybe, despite being both podcast buddies last summer, maybe Foster would now be Nice's #1. And honestly, how fitting. Ben Foster and Kasper Schmeichel are 2 of football's nicest men. So together, playing for Nice, how romantic would that be? But honestly, Nice, What is going on? Anyways, what do you, let me know in the comments below what do you think, right? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe as always. I'll talk to you in a while.